Okay, so what are we going to do in the lab? Okay, let me pause. Let me pause and talk about the lab a little bit because I don't want this to get out of to lose it. And let me hand out the lab handouts too. Now, some of these you've already seen before, so you won't have to get them. But if you want to need an extra copy, we've plenty. So there's our first lab, kinetics, and I'm just gonna mark this as 104 present also, so you don't have to sign again. Errors in preparing a lab report. You've seen that one before. This is a sample lab report. You've seen that one before, but you guys haven't, so you may want a copy of it. Here's my plagiarism statement. This is a blank rubric that I use to grade lab reports. This is only for formal lab reports. If we have any informal lab reports, the point scale is in the document. I give you whiplash by stopping there and heading off in another direction. You've already got this one too. These are extended character sets. A lot of the characters we use in the sciences are not on the keyboard. So you've either got to go to the, what's that thing called? Character map. Got to go to the character map and find your character, which takes several keystrokes. Or you can use this one, which has press the Alt key and then type out a number sequence on your keypad, the number keypad, and that symbol pops up. Well, this is a key to those. Those come in use. Those are handy. Lab report format right here, and safety contract. You can bring that one back next week. This is what your lab notebook should look like. And there's the syllabus. Okay, so I'll let you come pick those up. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I wanted to put this up so that our Zooming audience would see it. And actually, they don't need it because they've seen something like this before, but it's recorded. All this information is pretty much the same except for the details for the lab here. You're still going to need a calculator. You're going to need that lab notebook, right? We talked about that. That price is not right anymore. It was for a time, but inflation is what it is. But you're also going to need a lab coat. You need a knee-length lab coat like this one. Down that, I think if they come in inches, they may say 40 inches length, knee length. Then when we go in the lab, you're going to need closed-toed shoes in case you spill something that doesn't land on bare feet or even socks. Eye protection. We have eye protection in the lab. Right? We have goggles, but they've been used over and over and over again. They're scratches. It's hard to find a good pair without impaired vision. So if you invest in a pair of over glasses, they don't have to be full goggles, just over glasses to protect your eyes from shattered glass, direct spillage. Then you'll be in good shape. And we've got disposable gloves, nitrile, no latex. And I just got a new order in, so we've got plenty. We've got all we need. Let's see, this you can read that later. Get down to the important stuff. When you prepare for lab activities, let me get that cursor out of the way. I could have done it remotely, but I wasn't thinking quick enough. The document for each exercise is delivered at least a week before, in this case, several weeks, because we haven't even got the kinetics yet. So hold on to that, don't lose it. Okay. We'll talk about that more later. When it'll have greater meaning But these exercises are also in Brightspace in PDF format. And they're easy to find. The lab procedure, I have a recorded lab procedure in there that should be available. And you can view the lab procedure ahead of time. But give you some level of comfort that you kind of see how the lab is performed. You can view that as a pre-lab exercise, but there's no grading involved. It's just if you want to. So when you set up your lab notebook, let's talk about that. It's going to look like this. It's going to have nothing in it but these quadriline pages. On the cover, I want your name, the name of the course, and the semester. You can put anything else on there, but I want those three things on the cover. And then you go in here. Here's the fun part. You get to number every page with ink, right? Nothing goes in here that's not ink. So up in here, you write 1, and then you would flip over to this page, second page, and that'd be 2. So every right-facing page is odd numbered. Every left-facing page is even numbered. That's important because if you get distracted while you're numbering them, and you go back and number, and you see down the line and say, these are all coming out even. Uh-oh, I missed a page somewhere. So go back and fix it. How do you fix an error in a lab notebook? Think of this as a legal document. And for some companies, when you're working for the company and you have your lab notebook, your procedures in your lab, and quality control, whatever else you do, this is a legal document and it belongs to the company. So when you put anything in here, if it's a mistake, draw a line through it and initial it, and then put the correction. If it's big, well, I'll come to that in a minute. First thing you do, table of contents. And then as we add labs to it, you just write the title of the lab and the page it starts on. Title, lab, page it starts on. The reason you don't have to put all the pages like such from this page to that page is because it's going to run until the next lab. Right? So it's like any table of contents in a book. They never tell you from this page to that page. They just say, this is where it starts. So that's what the table of contents is for. And then you can go to the next page, or you can go to other page, and always put, when you are building your lab notebook, always work with the odd pages, the right-hand side, leave these alone. And double space, so you have room for corrections. This side is reserved for drawing graphs or big corrections. If you have a huge correction, you have to cross out a lot and then rebuild it over here. Then you got someplace to do it. And then when you put each lab in here that you're going to do, you put the title, and then you have an introduction, right? What's the purpose of the lab? Some background material, whatever. A lot of that will be in the printed document. Then you want safety concerns, right? What am I watching out for? You know, are you using a heat source, open flame? Are you going to have caustic materials, acids, bases? Then the materials that are actually required, a list of the materials that are actually required in the lab, and be specific. Not just the reagents, the chemicals, but also the equipment. Okay, utensils, equipment. Then the procedure in numbered steps. What are you going to do? And you can take that straight out of the printed procedure, right? And you can modify it to suit yourself. Think about this lab notebook. This is the guide to the experiment. Right? You should be able to conduct the experiment with this and leave the printed document in your bag. Right? So have enough detail in here to do it. Also, 6 months down the line, probably not in this setting, but in an employed setting, 6 months down the line, you can go back and repeat the experiment just by using this if you need to check something. Or if you leave that company and go someplace else, then you leave this behind, and whoever comes in behind you can pick up where you left off. So you need enough detail in there so the procedure can be repeated again in any event. So that's your procedure. Then you need to reserve places for data and observations. And so you label it data. And then you would have, and what you put in there depends on the nature of each of the experiments. Sometimes you can just put, label the information that's going to be in this blank, and you put a line there in the blank, and it's going to be so many grams of something, so many milliliters. Or if you've got an array of things that need to be done, you can set up a table, right? And you have blanks where you know data is going to be put there. The reason for that is if you're working your procedure down and you go back and look and you say, wait a minute, I've got numbers down here, but there's nothing in that blank. Stop, right? Is it supposed to be a blank? Right? Did we just eliminate that part of the experiment, or is it a replicate that you didn't need to make? Or are you missing that number? So it's better to stop now and start over again than to go all the way to the end and say, oh, I can't do my calculations because that number's missing. That's why you set up your data items or tables in advance. Right? So you can keep track of yourself. And then you're going to have a section on calculations. And leave yourself enough room. You may have some observations that you want to make. The reason you want to maybe insert observations from time to time is when you write your final report, that may be instrumental in understanding why your numbers turned out the way they did, why your calculations turned out the way you expected them, or didn't turn out the way you expected. Then you have notes on something that went wrong in the experiment. And maybe you asked me and I said, that's okay. Your answers will come out wrong, but at least you'll know how to do it. Something like that. Then section for calculations, reserve space for calculations. Right? Show yourself and show me when I look at it, and show anybody else that looks at it, that the calculations you made were according to a particular formula or answered a question. Then some of these labs have pre-lab questions that need to be done before you walk in the lab, right? And those go into pre-lab section, pre-lab question section. And then sometimes there'll be post-lab questions. And those, you just make a space for the post-lab questions and you fill those in later. And then you want a section on for discussion and conclusions. Right? What does it mean? Right? You summarize, right? Summary and conclusions. You summarize what you did in the lab, and you draw conclusions from it. What does it mean? I mean, was I just doing this as busy work, or does it have a meaning in the real world? And the reason I want you to lay it out that way is because that's the format for the formal report. It's going to be just like that. And if you put all this stuff in there in the notebook and you have it there, then writing the formal report is kind of like busy work. The only difference, the major difference between this and your formal report is in the procedures. You're going to write in the procedures exactly what you did. Right? Instead of saying, the instructions say, measure 50 milliliters of water or 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid solution, measure 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid solution, 50 milliliters in a volumetric pipette. It says do that. Then you say, when you write the report, you say 50.0 milliliters of 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid was measured and dispensed from a 50 milliliter volumetric pipette. It's a difference in tense. because it says what you actually did. Now, if you did something different than what's in the procedure, that's where you make the difference. Okay. And there's an item in this rubric that makes a point of that. It's the third item down. The most points are for a third person passive past tense. That just means this was done. Too many students say, I did this and we did that. You know, that's first or second person, or they would be third person. I did this. They won't say you. They just use first person. Say, I did this. No, that's wrong. Right? That rubric tells you what I want to see. Okay. There was supposed to be another document. I don't see it. But it was basically this list, how to set up your notebook and the things that need to go into your final report. And we can talk about final reports later, after you get a chance to look at that example. Evaluations. Okay, evaluations are going to be in the form of lab reports, 70% for the lab reports, 15% for lab skills, and that's going to kind of subjective. Just don't have any major accidents. Don't do stupid things in the lab. Come to the lab prepared. And then your lab notebook. I'll do a check at the very beginning to see if you got it set up right. You won't have any experiments in it at that point. You'll just have your cover. You'll have your table of contents. You'll have all the pages numbered to the very end. That's what I want to see on the first check. And then each time we go in the lab, I'll check it again to see if you've got everything there, because when you talk about safety, the first rule of safety is to be prepared. When you go in the lab, know what you're going to do before you go in. It's not like we're walking into the kitchen and we can experiment, throw flour this way and milk that way and butter, put the butter in the pan. Oops, I burned it. That doesn't matter. Throw the rest in. It's not that kind. In chemistry, we've got to be more methodical about it. And being prepared is the way you do that. Recognizing the possibility for different accidents, or if you know what's supposed to happen, or you have an idea of what's supposed to happen, then you can recognize anomalies while they're occurring. Okay, so we have dates here, we have activities here, and notice that here we have no labs. So on these days, at least past the first exam for this course, there won't be, well, next week there won't be a lab. I should put no lab here too, except that I'm going to check your notebook next week. And you guys in Zoom, since there won't be an exam and you can zoom in, you're going to have to submit your lab notebooks virtually. Go into Brightspace and there'll be a place for you to submit them. You don't have to do all 200 pages. Right? You do the cover, table of contents, and then 3 or 4 checks with the last page to show me that you went all the way to the end. And that will cover the first lab notebook check for you guys. Or anybody that wants to zoom in. Let's see. So maybe on this day, we'll talk about that lab. Hopefully. Because by that time, we'll have chemical kinetics. See, today, we're getting 2 chapters. Next week, we'll have a review. And the following week will be an exam. So first exam's going to come quick. I like to start off running, and then we can slow down later if necessary. But it's kind of like Anybody got any kids? No? Okay, when you do, be very strict in the beginning, strict rules, right? You can always loosen up later, but if you're loose to start with, you can never tighten up. Okay, so this is a list of this one is exercise 1 due is a formal report. This could be confusing. This exercise 1 is a formal report, the kinetics. This one, Le Chatelier's principle, is due at this time, and it's an informal report. Okay, that's what that means. This doesn't refer to that. This refers to that. Okay. So it's not confusing. It'll be obvious when I hand it out because Le Chatelier's principle, when I hand out the hard copy, it'll have so many points in the blanks where you put information. They're worth that many points. So I grade just that. That's an informal report. You just fill out that document, hand it back in. The formal report is the one where you fill out your lab notebook, gather the information, you write the report in a certain format, and turn that in. That's the one I grade with the rubric. So if it's an informal report like this one, you don't have to write. You don't have to do a formal report. And the last one is informal, right? Electrochemistry. These two are informal. Le Chatelier and electrochemistry. And the other 1, 2, 3, 4. The other 4 are formal reports. Well, we only have 6 labs. Okay. What am I forgetting? You can go into Brightspace and find the modules for each one of the lab exercises. And there should be a place in there that you can upload your documents. Right? If you don't come to class, you forget, then you have till midnight on that day that it's due to submit it virtually in Brightspace. Hard copies are fine. I'll accept hard copies, but otherwise you can submit your formal report that way. You can photograph or scan the informal reports and submit them that way if necessary. Okay. Any questions? No. All right. So for next week, all I want to see is your lab note set up correctly for the labs. Of course, for